Opinion trending now. Outrage as the biggest policy driver in today's attention-fractured society. Policy making is increasingly happening in the glare of trending hashtags and viral posts rather than in sober committee rooms. The global political arena has become a Twitter timeline and an Instagram feed, where the clamorous buzz of social media drowns out every sincere deliberation. Across the world, leaders now scramble to respond to whatever is trending that morning. Indeed, the power of a viral post, tweet or video can shift public opinion, drive movements, and even shape policies. This dynamic is warping priorities and turning governance into reactive performance theater guided more by optics than substance. Nuanced debates or long-term strategies do not set the agenda. Instead, policies are increasingly decided by the viral mood of the nation. Social psychologist Jonathan Haidt observes that social media has morphed into an outrage machine, spreading anger and toxicity, a machine that policymakers feel compelled to ride. The result is shallow, short attention span approach to governing that prizes retweets, reposts over reason, and clicks over consensus, eroding the foundations of democratic decision-making. Shifting it to a social media mob that moves from outrage to outrage. In an era of Twitter storms and Google trends, what gets attention dictates what gets acted upon. Elected officials and bureaucrats monitor social media as closely as opinion polls, ever wary of becoming the next target of an online uproar. In many democracies, a single viral hashtag can catapult an issue from obscurity to urgency overnight. A case in point: when the Me Too movement swept across the US, India, and beyond, it didn't just raise awareness, it forced tangible responses. Bollywood moguls, politicians, and corporate leaders faced consequences as allegations surfaced in India's Me Too wave, leading to resignations and even new workplace policies. A hashtag can indeed spark action. Yet, policies don't always change just because a hashtag went viral. Without real-world follow-through, online outrage risks becoming mere slacktivism, feel-good clicking without impact. Tech critic Yevgeny Morozov famously warned that slacktivism is dedicated activists' energy wasted on approaches less effective than the alternatives. In other words, viral moments can be a catalyst, but they are no substitute for the grind of actual policy making. Nonetheless, governments can hardly ignore the sway of social media fury. A Twitter-driven movement distorted public policy in India during the 2021 farmers' protests. When foreign influencers pushed the farmers' grievances, with hashtags like farmers' protest trending worldwide, distorting the voices on the ground. A small set of farmers supported by Canadian and American lobbyists used live updates on Facebook and Instagram to go viral on social media platforms and were helped by global celebrity activists like Rihanna and Greta Thunberg, who pushed the agenda of global lobbyists. A social media mob pressured the government to repeal the farm laws, a stunning example of sustained global activism bringing down a reform process. And policy debates these days feel less like deliberations and more like theater on a social media stage. In many countries, leaders have effectively become social media influencers, measuring success in likes, shares, and trend metrics. They craft pronouncements for maximum viral impact, tailoring sound bites to fit a 280-character tweet or a 15-second video. Governance is becoming a performance art. No one epitomized this public policy via social media better than former reality TV star and now US President Donald Trump, who has his own social media platform, Truth Social, where he has converted the Oval Office into a video studio. Where the signing of every executive order is televised, and he even uses video to castigate and cow down foreign heads of state, as was seen in his interaction with Ukraine's President Zelensky and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. And perhaps the most tragic casualty of social media's policy dominance is nuance. Complex societal challenges, climate change, immigration, economic hollowing out do not lend themselves to simplistic solutions, yet online platforms force simplification. Twitter's character limit and Instagram's blink-on-demissed videos reward brevity and bombast, not depth. As a result, policy discourse gets dumbed down into slogans and soundbites, stripped of context and complexity. Researchers note that the very format of these platforms, characterized by brevity and visual punch, encourages bite-sized pieces of information, which are often oversimplified or sensationalized. In short, social media distorts complex issues, reducing them to digestible narratives that may not capture the nuance of real-world politics. We see this play out daily. Online, a climate bill might get tagged as Green New Deal or climate hoax, labels that spread widely but shed little light. A nuanced policy proposal, a mixed approach to energy transition, is a tough sell when your opponent posts a viral 10-word rebuttal that frames it as an apocalypse or a utopia. Gray areas turn black and white on social media. There is little incentive to acknowledge trade-offs or uncertainties in a tweet when doing so will only dilute your message and cost you precious engagement. Consequently, policy arguments become simplistic: morality plays good vs evil, patriots vs traitors, nationalists vs anti-nationals, with no room for the painstaking work of consensus building or the admission of shades of gray. This erosion of nuance is compounded by the rise of rapid response punditry on apps like Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp. In the past, a significant policy idea would be analyzed by experts over time. Now it is instant fodder for thousands of amateur commentators within minutes. The moment a new policy idea or court case hits the news, an army of self-appointed experts on social media begins opining, often without reading beyond a headline. Accuracy sometimes takes a backseat in the race to get information out quickly. The first casualty is truth. Misinformation and half-truths proliferate long before any fact check can be issued. Studies show that initial false claims consistently outperform later corrections in reach and longevity on social platforms. By the time cooler heads attempt to clarify, the false narrative has hardened into received wisdom for a large swath of the public. The WhatsApp University effect exemplifies this problem. In India, WhatsApp group chats have become wildfire channels for propaganda, rumor, and lore, a parallel information universe where everyone is a professor and facts are often optional. Justice Kilovolt Viswanathan famously cautioned citizens, warning, "We should not get carried away by such messages." A lot of truth decay is happening. When a nation's highest jurist laments truth decay, it underscores how badly nuanced, factual discourse has eroded. The judge's phrase is chillingly apt. Truth itself is rotting away in our policy debates, as social media rewards whoever shouts the loudest, regardless of accuracy. Jonathan Haidt observed that Americans are cut off from one another and the past, unable to recognize the same truth in this fractured digital landscape. In such a climate, forging nuanced policy or even agreeing on basic facts becomes nearly impossible. Nan around the world, the loop between social media outrage and policymaker reaction has become almost instantaneous and perilous. Public officials now feel they must respond to viral sentiment immediately, lest they appear out of touch or unresponsive. This often leads to policy knee-jerks, hurried bans, sudden U-turns, or symbolic gestures drafted on the fly to placate the online masses. When a horrifying video of police brutality trends in America, city councils rush to propose police reform bills, some thoughtful, others performative, within days. When Outrage tweets accused a Brazilian official of corruption, investigations were announced by that afternoon, guilt or innocence aside. The timeline of deliberation has collapsed to match the Twitter news cycle. The problem is that governing by viral outrage is not governance at all, it's crisis management as a permanent state of affairs. It prizes immediacy over effectiveness and urgency over importance. Consider the cycle: a shocking incident occurs, social media explodes with anger and demands, officials scramble to appease the anger, a hastily crafted policy patch is thrown over the problem, and the online crowd moves on to the next outrage. Little attention is given to follow-through or long-term consequences. What mattered was projecting the appearance of decisive action in the moment. The tail wags the dog policy becomes a popularity contest, with leaders pandering to their most vocal online constituencies and demonizing the rest. This dynamic is corrosive to democracy. Tristan Harris, a former Silicon Valley insider turned critic, has warned that today's attention economy profits from stoking division and knee-jerk reactions. Tech companies are distracting, dividing, and outraging citizens to the point where there is little basis for common ground. This is a direct threat to democracy, Harris says bluntly. When every policy debate gets reduced to a flame war between tribes in their respective echo chambers, the space for compromise or evidence-based discussion disappears. The political center erodes, while extremes thrive on the algorithmic amplifiers that reward emotional, divisive content. Harris' point about loss of common ground is key. Effective policy making requires shared reality and mutual trust in institutions or facts. Social media, however, often delivers the opposite: a babel of clashing narratives where each faction lives in its own truth. While 2/3 of Americans believe social media has generally been bad for democracy, they still return to it for information and news. Meanwhile, those tasked with making policy face an unenviable dilemma. Do they engage in the social media fray, trying to correct falsehoods and inject nuance, at risk of being drowned out or dragged into endless online spats, or do they ignore the social media universe and risk seeming aloof and unresponsive to public sentiment? Increasingly, officials choose to engage, but on social media's terms, simplifying their messages and hardening their rhetoric to fit the medium. It's a devil's bargain. To be heard, they must play the outrage game, further degrading the quality of discourse. Academic research terms this phenomenon discursive governance, where leadership is exercised through controlling narratives and symbols in media space rather than through institutional processes. In practice, it often means governing by tweets and trends, instead of by research, discussion, and consensus. The consequence is a policy-making sphere that is loud but hollow. We see flurries of proclamations, ideological posturing, and viral campaigns, yet far less substantive progress on the underlying issues. Big problems like climate change or inequality require sustained, detailed effort, slow, coalition-building work that doesn't go viral. But in our current climate, patience is in short supply. As soon as the trending hashtag shifts, political attention shifts with it. Social media activism suffers from short-lived attention spans. Outrage lasts only as long as the issue is trending, one analysis observed, noting how many Indian online campaigns, justice for ex-victim, etc., flared brightly and then fizzled out, leaving little real change. Outrage is fleeting, real reform is plodding. The two operate on incompatible timelines. And if we want sound policies, we must restore some filter of reason and reality to our public discourse. Likewise, Jonathan Haidt has argued that we need to reform social platforms to dampen their most destructive features, slowing virality, discouraging anonymous trolling, promoting context to give society a chance to think before it reacts. Without such changes, Haidt suggests, our key institutions will continue to get structurally stupid. When dissenting voices are drowned out and everyone plays to their tribe, the institution gets structurally stupid. It cannot do smart things, he warns. This is as true of a legislature or a news organization as it is of a university or a company. A democracy constantly reacting to Twitter meltdowns cannot govern wisely or well. At the same time, citizens must shoulder responsibility for breaking the cycle of performative outrage. The temptation to treat politics as just another form of entertainment, a high-stakes reality show on our feeds, is powerful. It's easy to join the pillion of the day, harder to do the homework on policy details, or hold leaders accountable beyond the hashtag lifespan. But if voters reward only the politicians who produce social media fireworks, then fireworks are all well get. The informed, nuanced engagement that democracy needs can't be crowdsourced to meme makers and insta-influencers. It requires real participation, reading, listening, questioning, and yes, sometimes logging off to reflect rather than react. Ultimately, the distortion of policy making by social media frenzy is a self-inflicted wound that we have to heal as a society through policy for social media. This does not mean jettisoning social media entirely from the public sphere. These platforms have democratizing potential, giving voice to the voiceless and spotlighting issues that old gatekeepers often ignored. But as currently optimized, the system tilts dangerously towards spectacle over solution, heat over light. Policy making cannot survive as a perpetual popularity contest in the court of public opinion without losing its rigor and legitimacy. In the long run, societies will have to renegotiate the balance between the immediate demands of the crowd and the long-term needs of governance. The noisy digital town square is now a fixture of our democracies, but it must not become their master. Suppose we fail to restore deliberation, expertise, and nuance to their rightful place. In that case, we risk a future in which policies sway like a weather vane with every viral gust, and serious problems go unaddressed beneath the din. Swipe left for next video. A government by Twitter trending topic is, essentially, government by whim and spectacle. That may generate plenty of clicks and headlines, but it is no way to run a country. One observer poignantly noted that outrage lasts only as long as it's trending, but the consequences of hollow policy making will last forever. Our task now is to rebuild a political culture that values facts over flash, and substance over stunt, before the foundations of democratic governance crumble in the cacophony. Kayutish Rajavat is a public policy researcher and works at the Gurgaon-based Think and Do Tank Center for Innovation in Public Policy (CIPP). Views expressed in the above piece are personal and solely that of the author. They do not necessarily reflect News 18's views. Latest blogs.